This is Lesson 1 in Module 2. Opposite quantities combine to make 0. Our student outcomes for this lesson. Students add positive integers by counting up and negative integers by counting down, using curved arrows on the number line. Students play the integer game to combine integers, justify that an integer plus its opposite add to 0. And students know the opposite of a number is called the additive inverse because the sum of the two numbers is 0.
Our essential question is, how do you add positive and negative integers? Exercise 1, Positive and Negative Integers Review. Use the graphic organizer below to record what you know about positive and negative integers. In this activity, I'd like you to pause the video and place the words in the Venn diagram. And then when you're done, resume the video to make any corrections that you will need to. As you check your answer, double check to see where you put the 0. 0 is not a negative number or a positive number. It is considered neither. Example 2. Use the number line below to practice counting up and counting down. Counting up corresponds to positive numbers. Counting down corresponds to negative numbers. Let's practice with the given numbers. For the first number, positive 7, you will move from 0 and we'll move 7 in the positive direction, which is 7 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I put an arrow to show that I went to the right for a positive number. For negative 3, you'll start at 0 and move to the left for the negatives. 1, 2, 3. And that's negative 3. For 0, you simply do not move. For negative 7, start at 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So for negative 7, we went to the left 7. And to count up for 4, you start at 0 and you count 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right because it is a positive number. Where do you begin when locating a number on the number line? When adding integers, we begin at 0. What do you call the distance between a number and 0 on a number line? That is called absolute value. So the absolute value of 4 is 4 because it is 4 spaces from 0. The absolute value of negative 7 is 7 because it is 7 spaces from 0. The absolute value of 0 is 0. The absolute value of negative 3 is 1, 2, 3. And the absolute value of positive 7 is 7 because it is 7 spaces from 0. So the distance between a number and 0 is called absolute value. What is the relationship between 7 and negative 7? They are opposites. This is also called the additive inverse. And they are the same distance from 0. One goes to the left, one goes to the right. And they have a sum of 0. When you add a number and its opposite, the sum will always be 0. Example 3. Using the integer game and the number line. What is the sum of the card values shown? Use the counting on method on the provided number line to justify your answer. So the sum means to add the numbers together. For the 5, we'll go to the right 5. For the negative 5, we'll go to the left 5. For negative 4, we'll go to the left 4 places. And for the 8, we'll go 8 in the right direction. Remember to start at 0 to begin the problem. And then for every card, you ask yourself, how long is the arrow? The number tells you how long the arrow should be, and which direction is the arrow. the sign tells you which direction the arrow is. If it's a positive direction, you move to the right. If it's a negative direction, a negative sign, you move to the left. So we'll begin counting at 0, and we'll go with our first number, positive 5, 5 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we continue from that spot, and we'll go to the left for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll notice that when you have a positive 5 and a negative 5, you end up at 0. Anytime you add opposites, you'll get 0. From there, we continue to the left for the negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, we'll go to the right, 8. So from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And your final place is your answer. What is the final position on the number line? The final position is 4. And so 5 plus negative 5 plus negative 4 plus 8. The final position is the sum of those numbers. The final position is the sum of the numbers. What card or combination of cards would you need to get back to 0? So taking a look at our number line, we want to get back to 0. So we would need 1, 2, 3, 4. And that would have to be a negative 4 to get back to 0. So you could have a negative 4 to get back. And it says what combination of cards. So you could also use a negative 3 and a negative 1 to get back. So one of those would work. If you were at negative 4, what would you need to get back to 0? So let's say you're over here at negative 4 and you wanted to get back to 0. You would need 1, 2, 3, 4. Then would that be a positive 4 or a negative 4? Since you're going in the direction of right, that would have to be a positive 4. Exercise 2, the additive inverse. Use the number line to answer each of the following questions. How far is 7 from 0 and in which direction? So we have 0 and we have 7, and the question is how far is it and in what direction? You would have to go to the right, and you would have to go 7 spaces. 7 spaces to the right. What is the opposite of 7? The opposite 7 is going from 0 in the opposite direction 7 spaces. So this time going to the left 7 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the opposite of 7 is negative 7. How far is negative 7 from 0 and in what direction? Negative 7 is 7 spaces away to the left. Think back to our previous work. How could you use the counting on method to represent the following? While playing the integer game, the first card selected is 7. The second card selected is negative 7. The question is asking, how can you use the counting on method to represent the following? 7 and negative 7. So we're going to erase what we have here, and we'll represent that. Remember to start at 0. Count 7 to the, now if it's a positive number, we want to count to the right. Then, for the negative 7, we'll count 7 to the left. So again, we start at 0. We count 7 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the positive 7. Then the negative 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the negative 7, which goes to the left. Since we end at 0, 7 plus negative 7 equals 0. What does this tell us about the sum of 7 and its opposite, negative 7? 7 plus negative 7 equals 0. Look at the curved arrows you drew for 7 and negative 7. What relationship exists between these two arrows that would support your claim about the sum of 7 and negative 7? They are the same lengths, but in opposite directions. 7 and negative 7 are the same length, but in opposite directions. Do you think this will hold true for the sum of any number and its opposite? Yes, it is true. For any number and its opposite, you will get a sum of 0. Because you go forward, but then you go back the same amount. What is the additive inverse? That is the opposite of the number. For example, the additive inverse of positive 5 is negative 5. The additive inverse of negative 3 is positive 3. The sum of a number and its additive inverse is 0. Example 4, modeling with real-world examples. How could the value of negative 10 be used in a story problem? You could use 10 below 0, that would be negative 10. A $10 debit from a bank account would be a negative 10. And 10 feet below sea level would be a negative 10. See if you can come up with an example or two on your own. Write a story problem using football to represent the expression 4 plus negative 4. A quarterback throws a 4-yard pass for a gain. That's the positive 4. But on the next play has a loss of 4 yards on a run. That's a negative number. So there is an overall gain of 0 yards. Remember that a gain is a positive number and a loss is a negative number. Write a story problem using money to represent the expression 200 plus negative 200. I deposited $200 in my bank account and later withdrew it. There is no money left in the account. A deposit is a positive number, and a withdrawal, or when you withdrew it, is a negative number. So when you add a positive number and its opposite, which is called the additive inverse, you will have a result of 0. And in the previous football story, remember that the loss of 4 yards is the negative 4. So a positive 4 plus a negative 4 will have a sum of 0. These are called opposites, they are called additive inverse, and they always have a sum of 0. In this lesson, you have learned to add positive integers by counting up, and to add negative integers by counting down. Then an integer plus its opposite sum to 0. An integer plus its opposite sum to 0, or add to 0. The opposite of a number is called its additive inverse because the two numbers' sum is 0.